Beautiful. Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here.
Steve here.
Hello.
The wonderful Mr. Steve Rothery is with us today. You'll know Steve as Marillion's guitar player and of course the Steve Rothery Band. We're going to talk all things Mr. Rothery. We're going to talk all things pedalboard and Marillion and solo things and all that stuff. But before we get into that, please subscribe. Please do all that stuff.
Yes, click the button, subscribe, doesn't cost anything, and go to thatpedalshowstore.com and buy merch. That's how we keep going, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Hello, sir.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out. We've been trying to get this going for a couple of years now.
It's been a while.
You're a busy boy.
I am pretty busy, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that we want to get into today, you have developed over your career, you've developed your own thing, your own sound.
Yeah.
You've also developed some amazing fans,
Totally.
which is, and I've been interacting with them over the course of the last few days to get some questions that together. So we're going to jump into that. I've known Steve for, it's nearly 20 years now. And I've been lucky enough to spend some time with Steve, and actually my old band, Tin Spirit, supported Marillion at one of your incredible weekends at Port Zealand. If we can just go back to how this all started for you, the guitar, the music, the writing, what was your big inspiration?
Well, I started playing when I was 15. I decided while still at school that was the only thing I wanted to do with my life.
Awesome.
I think listening to Wish You Were Here when it came out.
Okay.
Left school at 16, played the guitar 10 hours a day. Joined my first band when I was 17. Everyone in my first band went off to art college or university. And when I was 19, I moved down from Whitby in North Yorkshire to audition for a band called Silmarillion. And I got the gig and I gave up my job, moved away from everyone, 250 miles just outside of Aylesbury, and then became Marillion and kind of gigged round, changes of personnel, fish joint, signed to EMI, 1982. And I kind of always used pedals. I mean, in the early days, it was Electro Harmonics, Big Muff and Electric Mistress. Great names. With a Lady 4x12 and an orange amp. And I was always really jealous of there was a guy in Whitby called Gary Trillo, and he had a real Les Paul and he had a real Marshall amp, and he had that sound. You know? And I was there with my orange and my Laney, and it just wasn't doing it. And I was really into Carlos Santana, so I had a Yamaha SG-2000, one of the first ones in the country, which was a lovely guitar, but I could never make it sound like that Les Paul and Marshall did. But anyway, I started getting into pedals, and then when I joined Marillion, and kind of formed Marillion, I carried on with that. When Copycat was it?
One Copycat.
Yeah. And again with various sort of distortion pedals. Signed to EMI, got into the studio, got a Marshall by then. Still didn't sound like that Les Paul at Marshall though. But, gradually kind of got more of an idea of the sound I wanted to make. And it was really our second album. We did a US tour, our first US tour at the end of '83. And my guitar tech at the time got us some amplification over there, got a Marshall combo and also a Roland JC120. And I kind of fell in love with the sound for that, not only for the clean sound, but for the solo sound with a Boss DS1.
Okay.
So that kind of became my signature sound for a very long time.
And this is 1980?
This is the end of '83, beginning of '84. Okay. So the Fugazi album, our second album in 1984, was when I really, all the solos on that album, a DS1 and a JC120 with there was a guitar the Roland GR300 guitar. It was like but it was like the Strat version.
Yeah.
I think it was made by Ibanez. But and that was like my main guitar for that and for Misplaced Childhood.
Wow.
I put a Kayleigh on it, and that was my main guitar for Gazzy and Misplaced Childhood. And then that guitar kind of wobbled, and I needed a spare. And I went on to Chandler's in London and bought this beauty for the pricely sum of £160, and that's kind of my main guitar for about the next 20 years. Yeah, you know, and I get that comment sometimes, why aren't you playing a Fender? And I had a Fender Stratocaster very early on in my career, and I didn't really get on with it. And for me, it's all about the quality of the woods. I changed the pickups and the hardware anyway. And if it's good quality wood and with the right amp and the right effects, it does that thing.
So let's put this into context. So you paid how much for that guitar?
£160.
And how many albums has been sold that this guitar's been on?
Probably about 8 million, I think. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys' feelings about this, but I don't think there's that much great wood left. I mean, I think the boutique makers make the effort.
Working hard to find it.
But I know for a time Gibson was just using whatever they could for the bodies of Les Pauls. But I think there was a period of time in the early to mid 80s where the guitars coming out of that particular Japanese factory, the Squires, were better than the Fenders, than the US Fenders at the time. So
there was a good reason for that. So the Squire brand was launched. Sorry. Tangent, in order that Fender could make some cash when Bill Schultz came in from Yamaha and Dan Smith. And so absolutely right they were, because they didn't know how to make the guitars anymore.
No.
But Fujigen did, or wherever it was they ended up making them.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I did want to ask you about that, actually, because I'm guessing that among Marillion fans and people really au fait with the band, if you don't know Marillion and you're new to the band and people say, tell me about Marillion, the first word that comes up is Kayleigh, right? Because it was massive.
It was, yeah, number 2. And Faceless Singer in those days was very much a larger-than-life personality. So to the point where people thought we were a Scottish heavy metal band. Yeah.
But I guess, as is the case, you know, when a band has a gigantic hit and it sort of defines the view in the public eye of the band, even though 18 studio records later.
I think, yeah, we're quite unique in that we were a band that have gone through that sort of mega success, you know, selling out Wembley and big stadiums across Europe and platinum albums, and then having a change like that. And, you know, we're still at a pretty high level, but not as high. But then we've sustained a career for the last 35 years with that change of singer and you know, we only made 4 albums with Fish. We've made 14 with Steve Hogarth. And, you know, some of our best work, the last album has done very well, great reviews. And, you know, we're quite rare because we're a band that's not a tribute to ourselves. We're about what we're doing now.
Yeah.
You know, so we're very much a band still in the creative part of their career. We're not just doing the chicken in a basket thing.
Yeah, playing Kayleigh as the opening song and the closer.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say about that track is it fits so beautifully into what was happening at music at that time.
Absolutely.
Like you just played the chorusy part there, but all the lead parts all the way through it. The sounds are immense and really important in the idiom of 80s guitar music.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that album, Misplaced Childhood, we recorded in Berlin at Hansa Studios. And most of the first side was recorded live in one take. Because we'd played the album live, well, the first side of the album live before we went to Hansa, we all knew it so well that we could do that. Yeah, we were that tight. Yeah.
So that's not just one song played live. You played the whole, like the first side.
Yeah, we played the first side from the beginning of the song to that bit I played earlier on. I can never remember what names we give these sections, but it's the "It's Getting Late" section, which is like 2/3, 3/4 of the way through side 1. That was all one take.
Man.
Yeah. But Berlin. What can you say? It must have focused as. in some way. But yeah, we had Chris Gimsey producing us for the first time, and he was very much into like capturing the vibe. You know, he'd worked with the Rolling Stones for years, and he had a very different way of working to Neil Talbot, who did the first two albums. But yeah, Chris did a great job of capturing the essence of the band.
You've cultivated this culture with Marillion fans where you were actually pioneers of crowdfunding to get your albums out there. So how did that happen?
I think because ultimately we've only made records for ourselves. We've not tried to follow trends or really had much pressure from record companies. And because of that, I think there's maybe a sincerity what we do.
Right.
And our audience tend to be real music lovers.
Yeah.
They're not like whoever the latest trendy band is. I think we've never been trendy. It's almost like the success of Kayleigh was a momentary blip where we suddenly appeared in the mainstream for a while, but not for too long, fortunately. And then we kind of disappeared into this parallel dimension, maybe where this kind of music lives. You know, because it's quite demanding music. You know, it's not instant pop music. And unless you have the mainstream exposure of a band like Pink Floyd, you're not going to reach that audience. But we've done well enough. And in a way, we're in the sweet spot in terms of success where, you know, we can live comfortably and bring up our families without having that manic pressure that you get from a certain level of success. Right. We had it when Kayleigh was out. You know, you couldn't walk through the supermarket without, you know, or some dodgy journalist trying to find some story about you. You know what I mean? So I'm really glad to be out of that level of success. It wasn't for me, and it nothing to do with music. And ultimately, for me, it's always been about the music. Yeah, I mean, the joy of creating. And performing, but especially creating. I think that's kind of been my life really, 45 years in Marillion.
So one thing that about Marillion, when I first started getting into it, you know, the progressive, I think on Wikipedia it's called neo-progressive. I don't know what that means, but that British progressive thing that was happening. But what you guys achieved are these epic tunes that aren't pretentious.
No, because you basically, when you work in this area of music, the only difference between conventional song structures and ours is that we don't have to conform to that verse, chorus, middle eight, solo, whatever. So it's like the difference between a short story and a novel. You know, if you want to say more, you can do, and it's almost like a film soundtrack. You know, you can create all these different places that you go. And the end result is something that is maybe more demanding of your audience, but gives them so much more in return. And you see that in our audiences. And you see the emotional connection to people have to the songs. You know, people, men and women, you know, with tears streaming down their faces because they're so into it. Especially with the last album, where there's a song called Care, which was written during the pandemic. And honestly, it just wipes people out. Yeah. I mean, it's emotional to play it, but to see what you do resonate so deeply with people it's a marvelous thing.
Yeah, it truly is.
It's also a nice juxtaposition with the way, and I guess I'm trying not to make this sound like a moan, but the way most modern media is so immediate, so vacuous, so digital, because you're there actually in front of human beings in the same space. It's great to hear that it still happens.
Yeah, we're like one of the last remnants of something that's been a rich tapestry of music through the years. That now there's very little music of this kind made. You know, most people don't buy music anymore. Most people under 30 will just stream it. We've now reached that point now with the TikTok generation where it's like little sound bites. But people will always discover this. There's something about music that transcends time or fashions, and you will always get a certain new generation coming in. Maybe not as many as it could be because it doesn't get mainstream exposure, but it will still always find an audience that it resonates with.
So Mark, the old Tin Spirits singer, massive Marillion fan, like he would follow you guys around the world. whenever,
Yeah.
you know. And, you know, when I first met Steve, who coming from Australia, and I wasn't familiar with the stuff that you'd done, and Mark says he gave me a list to have a listen to. And the first
homework.
Test.
the first song he gave me was The Strange Engine.
Right.
And I put it on, it's like 16 and a half minutes long. I'm like, get in, this is awesome. So, and I guess that's the thing, because you're not constrained about, okay, we're going to do verse, chorus, middle eight, solo, out. And what I was saying before about it not being pretentious is that there are, there is music that does that, but there's sometimes you get the sense, oh, we're going to throw this clever bit in here. And this, you know, a little bit here to show, hey, we actually can, this show you what we can do.
Yeah.
But like, if you listen to The Strange Engine for 16 minutes, it's different chapters of music, just all blending into each other. And there's nothing there that doesn't really want to be there. You know, it's really, it's amazing.
It's a great piece of music. Yeah, I mean, it's Steve's life, basically,
Right.
autobiographical lyric about growing up and his father going off to join the Merchant Navy, and you know, and it's incredible to have that scope within a song. But we've never been fashionable. I think that's the thing. I'm doing 3 different solo projects in between doing the next Marillion album, one of which is a project with Thorsten Questing from Tangerine Dream.
Right.
So we've done a few sessions over in Berlin with him, with a small sort of travel board. But again, having those amazing ambient effects you could get these days, it's been really fun.
Another one of those projects is with Steve Hackett.
It is, yes. I'm working with Steve tomorrow night on some ideas. We've been kicking ideas around for about 5-6 years now, but we're hoping to move it forward, do a bit more recording in August. I'd like to think that it will see the light of day next year, but you never know.
So do you write the solos out? How do you go about constructing a solo for a tune?
Most of my best solos have just been improvised.
Okay.
And have fortunately been recorded, like the Easter solo, this Strange Engine solo. I have to go and learn them.
Wow.
Sometimes, you know, and it's just as hard for me to learn them as for anybody else. How the hell did I play that, you know?
But they're just like in the moment.
You're
You're just feeling it in the moment.
completely in the moment. And
I love that.
all I'm trying to do is not go to the obvious place.
Okay.
Like where you jump around the neck and just don't play a pentatonic scale across the neck. You know, you try and surprise yourself. Where in the scale you're going to jump to, and the space. So much. Yeah, space is so important, really. And you play the spaces as much as you play the notes. And you see some of these players who are constantly shredding. There's no breathing space for the music. For me, you know, every note should have a purpose. It should kind of like be a pebble falling into a lake or something. You know what I mean? It should do that thing. Where if it's constant, you're not I don't know, you're kind of communicating with an audience when you play a solo.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can go as fast as you like. You know, you're not really communicating much other than the fact I can speak really quickly. You know, but you're trying to reach inside them. And melody and emotion. And, I mean, bending and vibrato is a very important part of what I do. And it always has been. And that's why my hand position maybe is compromised a lot of the time for anything like fast legato stuff. But it's all about having that maximum expression from each note, like, you know, squeezing the toothpaste out of the thing. It's each note's got to be as much emotion in it as you can squeeze in. But also, again, like the whole thing with the space, it's like I approach it almost like it's a wind instrument, and where you have those pauses for breath, you know, that it kind of gives it a lyrical quality. And I think if the sound's right, and if that thing is happening between the guitar speaker and the body of the guitar, which you can only get if you've got speakers.
Hello.
And even if, you know, I do use a modeler, I use a Quad Cortex live, but I also use amplifiers with it. So there's still that same relationship between the body of the guitar resonating and the air being moved by the speaker. But yeah, there's a couple of other sounds on here. I mean, some of them will be with when I move on to the third guitar with the other amplifiers. But let's see.
Can I ask, Steve, you've got various markings on some of your pedals there, and they look to be color-coded.
Yeah, just Chinagraphed, really. In the studio, where you find something that works, you just kind of mark it so you can relatively easily get it back.
It's not like this guitar, that guitar, and that guitar.
No. But this board is very much a work in progress. It was only finished just a week ago, so if it's a little bit noisy in times, it's because we haven't fully, done the troubleshooting. This is a newish board because I've traditionally travelled with two huge, like, fridge freezer racks full of gear. But over the last year, both of these big racks have been tipped on their back. So the strain, because a lot of the stuff is very, very heavy, the strain on the rack parts has kind of bent some of the chassis.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
I made the decision to downsize all that into one shock-mounted rack and put all the pedals on this board. So that's why it's still a work in progress. But this is pretty much a lot of the sounds that I've kind of used.
So before we let you go, I did throw out to
of course, the questions.
The Facebook land some questions.
Yeah.
Mick, if you would be so kind as to...
What have I got to do?
Just pass my phone.
Oh, I see. I am qualified for that. I thought you were going to ask me to program a MIDI preset or something.
No. So a question from Camera Obscura 888. He says, he was so excited that you're coming on the show. As a longtime fan, he's wondering where you draw your inspiration from writing your solos, as they're so melodic and dynamic. But as we've just learned, so many of your solos are improvised on the spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some you piece together from like 3 or 4 takes in, say, Pro Tools or Logic, and try and give it a nice shape. The Crone Nightingale solo was kind of done like that. But some of my most famous ones were kind of improvised, and then I had to go back and learn them. Maybe just kind of write a little bit to finish off the end of the phrase or something.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know where they come from, other than I think we were all some of our influences and the people we've listened to over the years. And my advice to people would always be to steal from as many different places as possible. You don't want to just become a clone of your favorite player. You want to just steal a little bit of this from here. And, my main 3 influences when I started off were Steve Hackett, Andy Latimer from Camel, and Dave Gilmour. But there was also other little, like the sustain thing from Santana, the general noise thing from Hendrix, the chordal work of Eddie Van Halen. I loved especially his chordal work. Some of the way that Alan Holdsworth used the arm. All these different players, and you just take a little bit aspect from each one, and you just kind of mix them all together, and hopefully something will come out the other end that is interesting to people.
Do you know Andy Latimer, by the way?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Because he lives very near to here, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, and I heard he'd been unwell, but...
Yeah, no, he's been unwell. because he had to cancel their last tour. Okay. But yeah, I presented him with a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Prog Awards about 5-6 years ago. And in fact, he emailed me at the beginning of this year saying he'd been listening to the Ghosts of Pripyat and complimenting me on it. So, which is very, very sweet of him. He's lovely guy. And one of my main influences, I think, in terms of phrasing and how he approached the guitar. So
amazing. I have a question here from Gould Branson. It says, can you ask Steve, please, why he feels it's important to stay era-specific with his gear on tour?
Because that's what works.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's like a palette of colours for an artist. You know, you wouldn't want to use different colours. It's like, it's so important. The sound is part of the song. If you want to reinterpret it, that's a different thing.
Right.
But like certain parts will only work with certain sounds.
Yeah.
So that's why I would always want to try and use the same gear more or less. But having said that, I've done these flying shows around the world. And you can't take your normal rig. You do your best to approximate it. But the JC120 is a very important part of my sound.
Steve is going to play a couple of pieces for us, which we might cut in or we might put on the end, depending how the edit goes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
It's been awesome, man.
Thank you for having me down.
Of course. It's been a long time coming, and we're so glad we've finally been able to squeeze into your incredibly busy schedule.
And I watch nearly all of these shows you put out, and it costs me a fortune. And my wife's always saying, that's another pedal. I said, well, it's...
Sorry, Joe.
How is it different to all those other chorus distortion, whatever pedals you've got? Well...
Mate, no, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
In terms of things we can look forward to, so do you say Marillion's about to record or is recording?
Well, we're writing at the moment. We do this thing these days where we write and record at the same time because everything goes into Pro Tools at 2496. And so if any magic moments happen, you can keep them and develop them and add to them. So that's
What does a writing session for Marillion look like?
5 guys in search of a tune. It depends. Sometimes it's like you walk in there, nothing happens. Nobody has an idea, and it's just But we only spend usually these days about an hour. We walk in. If something happens in that first hour, it'll be worthwhile.
Okay.
Once it gets past the first hour, you're usually treading water.
That's experience there.
Yeah, but if it does start to happen, I mean, if I'm in the zone, I'll maybe have 5 or 6 ideas one after another. And then it's down to, is everyone listening to each other? So we're not trying to paint different pictures.
You're all in there together.
We're all in there together.
Okay.
Love
when
that.
you said when you walk in, I wasn't sure if that was metaphorical. You are actually...
Yeah, all 5 of us are in the room.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How cool. That doesn't happen anymore for anyone who's confused about that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people develop ideas at home and then bring them in. But generally speaking, that initial arrangement stage. And Mike Hunter, our producer, has to take a lot of credit as well. He's the person... herding cats, trying to get us all on the same page. And, he's a person that sorts through literally hundreds of jams and picks out the moments that he thinks we could really make something special with, little nuggets of gold, and then maybe in a few months' time we'll go back and revisit those and develop each one. But then we've got all the 8 Marillion weekends next year, so we probably won't finish this album until the end of next year, I would think.
Right.
And then tour it.
So any Marillion fans out there, obviously you will already know about the weekends, but if you are a Marillion fan and you get the opportunity to go down to one of these things, it is the most amazing celebration of music that, certainly for me, I'll never forget it. It was really, really special. And
the best audience in the world. Right?
Yeah. And the solo shows?
Yeah, no, they're going really well. We have a weekend in Glasgow coming up and another one in Manchester at Band on the Wall. Then I'm headlining a prog festival in the Netherlands at the end of June and then a show in Zoetermeer. Then with the penultimate band, the last ever Lorelei Night of the Prog on the Sunday night. And then various other shows, Barcelona, Malta, 3 German shows.
Man.
So I like to keep busy.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Also, kudos on the Ghosts of Pripyat.
Oh, cheers.
What a great album. Really wonderful.
It's been gratified, actually, the amount of people that come up to me all the time and tell me how much they love it. Some people kind of like to have it on the background when they're working or just driving in the car, and it's great.
Yeah.
Instrumental guitar albums don't normally tend to sell that well. So
and I'll just throw this in as well, because one of the things with your solo shows as well, you also play some old Marillion with the band.
And
and
all
it's
the way back.
And the singer Martin
Jakubski does an amazing job, and the shows we did last year, we did all of Misplaced Childhood and all of Clutching at Straws.
Wow.
And these audiences all across Europe just went crazy.
Yeah.
Again, guys with tears in their eyes, just they never thought they'd hear this music played live again by anyone in the original band. Fantastic shows.
That's awesome. And also shout out to Dave Foster as well.
Yeah.
Your partner in battle and amazing guitar player. And,
amazing guitar and a more amazing guy.
Yeah.
And he helps me put together these boards. Well, he does all the work while I just stand around making him cups of tea, if truth be told. But also a great musician and songwriter.